Hey there, welcome back to Online Marketing Foundations. We're still in Module 2, Commit to Lead an Audience, and this is kind of our first substantive lesson. Here in Lesson 2, we're going to talk about how you define your niche. This is kind of a critical first step for any business to define the niche that they serve. And it's especially important in the online world, and what I find is that there are a lot of people who struggle in business because they haven't done this all-important step. And it's something that a lot of people struggle with because niching seems like you're narrowing the world of people you can serve, which people say, but don't I want to cast a wide net? What I'll tell you is it doesn't actually work that way. The more you niche, the more you're actually going to be able to reach people and build a successful business. So let's get started. And as always, we're starting with the truth bomb. And that's that if you haven't specifically defined who you serve and the problem you help them solve, you will never succeed in building a business. This is something that you've got to accept. I can tell you, I know a lot of people don't want to, but if you're not specific about who you serve and specific about the problem you help them solve, you will ride the struggle bus and it will continue to be a challenge for you. So you need to accept this, and it's a truth bomb I have seen over and over again that you're going to have to define who you serve and the problem you help them solve. Now, specifically in this lesson, we're going to talk about what constitutes kind of a viable niche. Like how do you know that you've gone far enough in making this definition, and why do you need to do it? I want to present that so there's no doubt. But then we're also going to talk about how to define a niche in a way that will actually get you results. Like, I don't want you doing things and defining who you serve in ways that isn't going to help you. You need to make sure that the niching process is about actually helping you to get the right results. So that's what we're going to talk about, and let's go ahead and dive in. And first, we're talking about what is a niche and why do you need one? The central concept here is simple. If you're talking to everyone, you're really talking to no one. This is something that so many people struggle with. They will say, I can help everyone. Again, I'll hear this often from life coaches and people who have that they really could, honestly. A life coach could help just about anyone. The problem is, though, if you say things like, I help people get unstuck, no one hears that and says, you're talking to me. See, when you niche and you talk to a very specific person with a very specific problem, what happens is people who you actually could serve in that niche will hear you and say, ooh, Bobby is talking to me. Bobby knows me. Bobby understands me. And that's what you want. And that's the purpose of niching. So niching is simply the process of defining a specific group of people for whom you can help solve a specific problem. So there's two pieces there, a specific group and a specific problem. You have to kind of hit both of those pieces. What you're ultimately trying to do is identify a group that you can serve with a common product, with like one product, and that you can reach with one message. In other words, you have not actually found a niche until you can say, okay, well, this single product, it could be an online course, for example, or it could be an online tool, but I've got this single product and it can serve all the people in this group. And then also you have to be able to say, and I can reach them with a single message. I don't have to have 10 different sets of messaging, 10 different problem sets that I'm talking about to bring them into my funnel. And we'll talk about each one of those a bit more in depth in a second. But I want you to get that's what we're talking about. Common products. So one product and you can reach them with one message. Now, I got to take a second here to talk about what niching isn't. Because a lot of people, you'll hear them talk about things that I would say is basically just busy work. It's busy work that doesn't actually help you in this process, but the problem is it makes you feel like you've done something, and so it can be counterproductive. So I've got to talk about what niching isn't. And it happens generally when people are talking about something called your ideal customer avatar, or ICA. And some people will say, hey, create a picture in your mind of your ICA. Like literally they'll say, hey, what color hair do they have? What color eyes do they have? How old are they? All of that stuff. So literally you're creating this picture of a specific person. What I'm going to tell you is hair color, eye color, those kinds of things have nothing to do with niching. And defining that is not going to help you to actually, build an audience or serve an audience in a meaningful way. But the problem is when you do it, sometimes you say, oh, well, I've done it. I've defined this person. And I'm guilty of this. When I first entered this world, I literally went through this whole thing and I defined it. It was a woman. I think she was 28. I literally gave her a name. I did all of this because it's what people were teaching. That did me zero good because none of that has anything to do with helping you kind of identify an audience generally. So that's kind of part of it. But then the other thing is like traits or interests that don't affect marketing. An example I always use about this is like, people will tell you to identify like TV shows that maybe your audience likes. And I'm just going to say, if it's a TV show that you like, great. But otherwise, what good does that do you? I mean, what good would it do me to know, for example, if I figured out that that a lot of my audience or some of my audience liked things like The Real Housewives of whatever. Well, if I don't like it and if I don't want to talk about that show, that has no value to me as a marketer. So that's the kind of stuff, again, you'll see this where people are telling you to kind of do all of these little things and identify all this little stuff. That's not going to help you. That's not going to help you because, again, that's not the stuff that actually helps you create and craft the right kind of message, create the right kind of product, or do any of those things that are critical to your marketing. But another thing that people will do is to kind of create an elevator pitch or like platitudes that sound great but don't mean anything. And you know what I mean. It's people will use like, this whatever speak that doesn't really mean anything. Like I'll hear people say like, I help people get unstuck, or I help people stop, the self-sabotage and all those things. And I'm just like, okay, that means nothing. Those are words that literally to your audience means nothing. And that's not going to help you. So all of those kinds of things, and again, as long as you do the niching work and that we're going to talk about here, this stuff won't hurt you. But the problem is that a lot of people do this stuff and don't do the deeper work. And this stuff isn't what's ultimately going to help you. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is to create a niche statement. You should be able to reduce it to kind of a niche statement that defines the group of people and the problem that you help them solve. Short and pithy. So instead of like a platitude-filled elevator pitch or something like that, you actually have a statement that has some meaning to people. So, for example, I help course creators, coaches, and service providers get their legal protection in place. I identify the people, course creators, coaches, and service providers. And then I say, what do? I help them get their legal protection in place. I'm saying exactly what problem I help them solve. And so you can see how this statement is actually kind of getting specific, and it didn't even take that much time. And this is kind of a statement that I would have had from my original business as the legal guy of what I did. It's the kind of thing, though, that is specific, that says exactly what it is, and then I know what I need to figure out. So that's an example of a niching statement. So let's talk quickly about some mistakes that people make as they're niching. One of them is that they try to solve different problems with a single product. They try to come up with like a catch-all product that will just solve all of these different problems. And the other thing people do is they try to serve different groups of people with a single product without considering whether you would be able to reach them with a single message. So both of these come back to, hey, can I actually create a single product that serves people, and can I reach them with a single message? And an example of the mistake that I made early on was when I was first starting, I had this idea that I could serve entrepreneurs. Like literally, I said, I help entrepreneurs with the legal stuff. And in my mind, I literally thought, I was thinking I was going to create a course or a training or something, and I was thinking it would serve, the people that I now serve, online coaches, online course creators, things like that. But I was also thinking of like tech entrepreneurs. And if you think about it, creating a product on the legal stuff that would serve all of those different people, either it would have been impossible or it would have meant including a ton of information that is completely irrelevant to certain groups of people, because a tech entrepreneur has very different questions, very different concerns, very different problems from an online course creator. And so trying to put together one product here would have been impossible. Realistically, I would have had to create multiple products to be able to serve that group called entrepreneur. So that's the example of a quote niche that doesn't, or that I couldn't serve with a single product. But another example that I've heard where someone, like a single product could help people, but they didn't meet the messaging requirement, was this person. He was a guy who thought he could help people take better pictures. And he said, well, I'm creating a course to help amateurs take better pictures. And I said, okay, well, who? Well, said it can help anybody. And I said, well, that's great. But you understand that, like, talking to, for example, a new parent about taking better pictures so they have better pictures of their kids, that's going to be one set of messaging. And talking to, like, a travel blogger, back when we had travel blogs, talking to that travel blogger about, how to take better pictures of their destination so that they would have beautiful pictures for their blog, you can see how, like, literally, if you're talking to one of those groups, you're passing straight by the other one. And that's the kind of thing I'm saying where, yes, they could almost certainly use a single product. I mean, a single product could help both of those groups. But the problem is that you'll never be able to reach them and be able to get them interested because you'll never be able to communicate the value of the product to them in a single way. So you're going to have to start with one. Now, maybe you can help, and expand into the other later. But in this kind of situation, you have to pick one of those niches and go with it. So let's talk quickly about the purpose of niching. Like, why are you doing it? What's the reasoning? The first thing is that it will help you to attract fans with content and freebies that speak to their existing concerns. Let's use the example of that course about better photography. You can imagine how if you said, okay, I help new parents take better pictures of their child. Like, that was your niche statement. If that's how you do it, you can imagine all kinds of content, all kinds of, like, freebies that you could get people to opt in to receive that are speaking to the very specific concerns they have. Because your messaging, everything you like are talking about can relate to problems of new parents with photography. I mean, I can imagine a lot. I'm not a new parent anymore, but, I remember those days where literally I would just, hit click, 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 click. I would take, 50 pictures in a row because one of them might be good. So I can just think of how you could reach that set of that set of parents, that particular niche, in a very specific way and get them interested. But it's also will help you to nurture your existing people with kind of a messaging that feels like you're inside their heads. Again, the goal of messaging, of marketing, of the things that you're going to try to do here is, and it's not fake. You don't want people, you're not falsely making it feel like you're in their head. You want to understand them at a deep level and be able to communicate to them the value of your product for their particular problems, their particular concerns, their particular pain points. When you have a niche that is specific, where the people share common attributes, and what I mean by that is what they're worried about is the same, you'll be able to kind of touch into that and find the message that resonates with them, and that will make them feel connected to you. And then also you can serve your people with the perfect offer, because when you have a niche well-defined, you can create a product that meets the specific needs of that specific group, and it will actually work. Instead of trying to create a monster product that is kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of different stuff and doesn't really help a single group because it's kind of not matched for everyone. So that's how niching is going to help you. That's why you've got to do it. Now let's talk about how to do this. Like, how do you go through the process of doing this? And the process of niching follows from its purpose: to define a group based upon a common problem. Basically, to identify a specific group with a specific problem you can help them solve. And a lot of people, this is where I want to talk about, don't do the irrelevant stuff. Things like race, age, gender, education, profession, occupation, income level, and marital status, those are called demographics. Generally, those don't matter. Now, in some cases, they will. For example, like maybe you're speaking to, married professionals, and that's a reason, and you help them solve a particular problem. But most times, that won't matter. Like, if you're helping with a lot of different problems, marital status won't matter. My age won't matter. My gender won't matter. All of those things generally won't matter. Now, again, there are times when it will. Okay. But what I want you to get is that these are the things a lot of people like have you think about when you define your ICA. They would say, identify, is it a man? Is it a woman? How old are they? Things like that. I'm simply here to tell you that stuff generally doesn't matter. I can tell you, but I serve online entrepreneurs who are men, who are women, who range in age from, I don't know my youngest person, but I have people in their early 20s all the way up to 60s and 70s. I can tell you it runs the gamut. And nothing about their age or whether they're a man or a woman, and of course their race or any of that stuff, in any way affects how I serve them or my ability to serve them. That stuff just doesn't matter. Again, what I would ask is, there may be some cases where it does, but just be suspect about that. Ask yourself, will the demographic info help you find them in a common place or identify common messages? If it will, it potentially is a reason to use it, but be careful about it. But what really matters, what actually does matter, is things like their attitude, their aspirations, their lifestyle, their ways of thinking. And the reason these things, these are the things that actually matter. And the reason is that they're the things that are going to identify the problems that people have. So that's what you need to figure out, spend your time figuring out. Like, what does your ideal customer, your ideal person, what are they thinking? What is the lifestyle they're leading? What do they want in life? All of those things are what will actually matter because they define the pain points, the obstacles, and the frustrations that your people are facing. So you've got to kind of think that way. And again, an example I can give to you here is, sometimes you combine everything. But I've told the story many times that I kind of started in the online business with the help of a life coach, but it was the perfect example of a life coach who had niched because she didn't call herself a life coach. She said that she was a relationship coach who helped married professional men who wanted to improve their relationships with their wives. That's how she hooked me. That was the promise. That was, in some sense, the struggle that I was working on and trying to work through. That's what got me in the door, and then she was able to solve a lot of problems, serve me with that, but serve it in many other ways about my professional career, etc. But you can see how her doing that very specific niche statement made it so that I said, oh, you're talking to me, and then allowed her to help me in so many different ways. So that's kind of the process of doing it because you're looking at the what was it that I was struggling with? What did I want? All of those were the things that she was speaking into, and that's what you want to be speaking into when you're niching. So how do you know that you've niched far enough? Because what I'll tell you is most people don't. Most people stop short of where you should go. But a couple of tests. Number one, you should have defined a niche specifically enough to find people spending time together online. In other words, you should be able to find the group of people that you define as kind of the who in your niche statement hanging out in common places online. If you can't find that, it is a problem because you're trying to build an online business. So you need to know where they are. You need to be able to find them hanging out somewhere. So the first step here is you've got to make sure that you can find those people spending time together online. And then the second piece is that you have to have defined the niche specifically enough to find the common pain points, frustrations, or obstacles related to your service. And what I mean by this is you have to be able to look at it and say, okay, the people who I'm saying I'm going to help have a common set of pain points, frustrations, and obstacles. And that has to be kind of, this is an art here. It's not a science. I can't give you an exact formula, but you'll kind of know it when you see it, which is, hey, they have this thing where, people are struggling. In my case, now with business coaching, I help information-based businesses who are struggling to get traction in their business. And so you can see I've identified the people, information-based online businesses, and identify the pain point. They are struggling to get traction. They're struggling to really kind of, get the momentum they want in building an online business. And so that's kind of a way that I've defined it where it's a common pain point, frustration, etc., and I can really kind of speak into that messaging. So that is when you know that you've niched far enough. Now, often the best way here is actually to combine demographics and psychographics. Like I said, when you're thinking this through, demographics, you got to be careful with them, but sometimes you're going to use them and they can be powerful if used right, but use kind of their thinking, the psychographics of what do they want? What are they struggling with? Those are the things that will ultimately help you with the niching the most. So ultimately, though, if you want a thriving business, you need to define your niche. So take some time and actually do this work. Now, in the next lesson, you'll learn how to find your potential customers and then how to listen to them. Basically, next up, we're talking about how to do market research, because that's an important piece. If you want to lead an audience, you need to know what it is that they're struggling with so you can figure out how you can be the leader they need. I'll see you there.